So here's today's reminder to self. And this truth came to me from Mark chapter 8, where Jesus feeds the 4,000. And it's a truth and a reminder that God cannot multiply what we do not bring, what we do not offer. That is to say, the reason Jesus was able to feed those 4,000, the reason he did it the way he did, I think was in order to teach us a very important life lesson, right? Because Jesus was a great, wise teacher as well. And it's something that we forget when we're praying and when we're asking for things and we're focusing on what we want and what we don't have and all these overwhelming moments. It's that God can't do anything with nothing. Like God can't make 2 out of 0 or make 4 out of 0. God can make 4 out of 2. God can make 8 out of 4. God can make 9 out of 3. I mean, God can multiply just like he did in this teaching, in this lesson that he taught us. When the disciples were with Jesus and the crowd had been following Jesus in chapter 8, it says Jesus had compassion on the crowd because they had been with him for 3 days, following him for 3 days, and he wanted to feed them. And the disciples were like, well, how are we going to feed these people? We're out in this desolate place. How are we going to have bread to feed all these people? And Jesus said, well, how many loaves do you have? And they said 7. So he said, bring me the 7. He laid out the 7, broke the bread. They ended up having, I don't remember how many basketfuls left over, like 4 basketfuls left over after feeding like 4,000 people, right? They brought some of the bread and they had like a few fish. And that became enough. But Jesus asked them first to bring what they had, right? It wasn't like, let me just snap my fingers out of thin air because there's a need. And I know there's a need here, but I'm just going to snap my fingers because I can and show you guys how great I am and have everybody go, oh, wow, what a great magician. And that's it. No, like there was a purpose to everything God did on earth while he was teaching us with his life and the way he lived his life. Like there was a purpose. There's always a message. There's always a deeper truth, something that's going to help us along the way that we can apply to our own lives. So this is just a reminder to myself, first and foremost, when I need to hear this, and to anyone out there who might forget this as well and needs to be reminded today. We have to do our part. We have to do our part before God can do his part. There's so much. There's this quote I heard. It's, without God, I can't. Without me, God won't. And it's like, we need God. We know that. And it's like, and God can do all things. Like God could have snapped his fingers and like filled up those baskets of, filled up all, just created a feast, a banquet out of nothing, out of thin air. But that wasn't the purpose. It was that collaboration. It was doing it with the disciples. It was teaching them that they could multiply what they had, that there was a way that they had to just bring what they had in faith. Right? Bring what you have as an offering. Bring what you do have. Focus on what you do have, on what you can do, on what you can bring. Bring that to me in faith. Trust that I can make do with that, and I will take care of the rest. Right? So there's a deeper life lesson and a way to live and a perspective that he's trying to teach us, like how to see our day to day, how to see our life, not to see it as I do or I don't, not to see I have, I don't have. I'm just going to focus on the lack. No, I'm going to focus on the opportunity. I'm going to focus on what can be. What I don't have this yet, but I do have this now, and I'm grateful for this, and God can make do with this. I bring it in faith. Like there's a whole mindset. There's a shift in perspective. And I know we've heard a lot about the lack mentality or scarcity mindset or scarcity mentality and all these things of like, oh, I don't have. And so if you think you don't have, then you won't have, right? That might be more of like a modern, psychological term or psychological teaching, but really this was like ancient, right? I mean, Jesus is saying this way back then, like, don't focus on what you don't have. What do you have? What can you bring? Because I can multiply what you do have. If you don't have anything and you focus on what you don't have, I can multiply 0 and you're going to get 0. Keep getting 0. Bring a mindset of 0, bring a mentality of 0, bring this idea and focus of that you don't have anything and that there's nothing, and you're just going to keep getting that. Or you can bring what you do have and trust me to multiply it, and focus on multiplying what you do have, focus on what you can do, and then I can multiply it tenfold. So this is a reminder to keep the faith in that, in the truth of that, and also to be mindful of the responsibility that we have, the role that we get to play, that we are gifted enough to play in this whole thing, which is we get to participate. We're not designed to be bystanders and just be sitting like just applauding like this crowd that's like, oh wow, next magic trick, oh wow, next magic trick, oh wow. We get to actually be involved. And when I think about it, I'm like, okay, 7 loaves of bread, that takes time. If all I have, if I'm doing it like a metaphor, what this bread represents and the things that I'm walking towards in my deepest desires in this place in my life, in this season of my life, and you may have your own deepest desires and things in your heart that are calling you, that you and God know, is what you really want, what you really desire. If I think about like these 7 loaves of bread and I can only bring 7 loaves, that still takes time, because by the time I get to the 7th loaf of bread, it's like I will have had to spend some time, mixing the flour and mixing I am going to give away how little I know about baking bread. I mean, I'm guessing like some eggs, some milk, whatever ingredients. I'm going to have to have spent some time getting these ingredients, mixing the ingredients, getting my hands in there, shaping it and putting it in the oven and bringing it out. And like, there's still some kind of time and dedication, discipline, time management, commitment to the timing of it, to the making of it, bringing the loaf out again and again and again until I get to 7. If I've got into 7 loaves of bread, I'm showing that I've put in the time, I've put in the effort, I've put in the commitment. Not that God needs any of my effort, time, and commitment, because time is not mine. Effort is not mine. It's all, God created everything. It's all God's anyway. But I'm willing to use that and steward it and show what I choose to make of that, whether I use it responsibly or not. And here I am showing that I'm going to use my time, my focus, my dedication, my commitment to making these loaves of bread faithfully, loyally, time after time after time. I get to 7 and I bring that and I offer these 7 loaves. And I'm like, I've multiplied. I started with 1 loaf of bread and I built on that and made 2, and then I baked a 3rd one, and it, I stuck at it. I made a couple of mistakes on the first few. I burnt it, or it came out, I brought it out too early, or I brought it out too late, and it was kind of, but I kept at it, and now I'm up to like 5 loaves, and then 6, and now I'm up to 7, and so I'm showing my faith, my commitment, my trust and in God. And so that is ultimately what you're bringing. You're bringing that heart. You're bringing that posture. You're bringing that offering. It's not just the 7 loaves, but what it represents, what it took to get those 7 loaves. And it's showing God, like, I'm showing with my actions, I want this. I'm committed to it. I'm using my time for this because I value it, because this is what I want. And even though I have a need and a hunger for something that requires 20,000 loaves of bread, I'm faithful and trusting in you enough to where I'm at 7 loaves and I'm just going to keep doing it day by day in this habit and in this lifestyle and in the choices that I make, and because I'm looking forward and I'm looking in that direction because that's the vision I have for my life and that's the goal that I have and that's what I see. So, and as you're doing your 7 loaves, God can fill in the gap of those other, 19,000 loaves left that you need to make, right? You need to focus on what you can do, not on what you can't do. And so that's the reminder. Sometimes we get misguided. We get this idea of like the genie in a bottle, and it's like, I'm just going to sit down, I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to say, bring me these 7 loaves, like bring me this, fill this need and this hunger, because there's like all this in front of me and I don't know what to do. And I'm just going to keep hoping and wishing and praying and hoping and wishing and praying. And there's no action. There's no time that you've put into it. There's no sacrifice that you've put into it. There's no commitment that you've put into it. There's no faithfulness, no discipline, no sacrifice, nothing that you've put into it, except you just wanting it, and you're praying, which is great, right? Because you're asking. But when you're prompted and when you're given the opportunity to bring something to the table, you hesitate, you're lazy, you don't walk it out in faith. So we're not meant to be so passive. There's an intentionality, and there's action, and there's assertiveness, there's being in there with it, right? He didn't say just, okay, well, don't worry, guys. I know we have 4,000 people to feed. Y'all just sit back and watch me like pull this out of a hat. He's like, what can you bring? So they had to bring something first. So he involved them in that process. God is involving us and inviting us to be a part of it. So just to recap, God's not going to make anything out of nothing. That's not in the Bible. He's multiplying the bread that they had, multiplying the fish that they did have, using the faith that they had to heal them, right? Using the belief, right? Multiplying that belief, multiplying that faith that they had so that it healed their body, right? Using that belief and using that faith that they brought to him, using that open heart and the willingness and the desire to change. There's always something that we are bringing, that God is able to use, God is able to multiply, God is able to put to a purpose, to heal, to create, to heal, to deliver, to make new, to restore, to make a way, using that. But nowhere in the Bible are we seeing examples of people just chilling at home, closing their eyes, and they're just saying it over and over, and then there's no action. There's no action on their part. Not true. If anything, chapter 8, right, shows us at the beginning, this crowd had been with him for 3 days. So they had been following him. They had been committed. They had been faithful. They had been walking close to him, staying close to him for 3 days, day and night, day and night, day and night. There's an action there. It's a relationship. It's an action. Every action has a reaction. There's take one step forward. One step towards him, God takes a step towards them. It's compassion, it's that mutual, it's that love, it's that appreciation. I don't know where we're getting this idea that we can sit and we can run away and things are just going to happen and God's going to just come to us and God's going to bring it to us and God's going to make it happen for us and God's going to create it for us. And it's just like this Uber delivery service where things just all get done for us and we don't have to do a single thing. So much is possible. Yes, all things are possible. Miracles are possible. Yes. But the teachings that if we really read the word and we really go off of the truth of the word, all these things are possible in Christ, right? And what does that look like? Being in Christ involves a certain kind of life, a certain kind of mindset, certain kinds of choices, certain kinds of actions, habits. It's not a passive, all things are possible. In faith, what does faith look like? How does how does faith look like in your life? What kind of life are you living if you're living in faith? Oh, all things are possible in faith, because all things are possible in faith. All things are possible because I believe. When you believe, all things are possible. How do I know you believe? How are you living your life to show that you believe? What actions, habits on a regular basis are reflected in your life to show that you believe? Because if you're just saying, "Oh, I know it's going to happen because I believe," but you don't actually have 7 loaves to show, this is how I know that, this is how you can tell I believe, because I've been making loaf after loaf after loaf of bread with my time, acting on this belief. See, you're already halfway there because you made the 7 loaves. God's going to multiply it enough to meet the need, right? But if you're just like, "Oh, I know it's going to happen because I believe," but you're not doing anything with your time, with your talents, with your gifts, with the resources God has put at your disposal to make that happen, to at least make little 7 loaves of bread to fill that need, you're just sitting back and saying, "No, I know it's going to happen." Then you're going to wake up and you're going to have the same thing that you had to show for it yesterday. So let's take heart and be encouraged by the fact that, yes, all things are possible in Christ. Faith is powerful, and also be mindful of the fact that we have been equipped and empowered to do a lot of things ourselves, and to bring that to be multiplied, to make more of what we create as well. We have the ability to create and to do, and we're not supposed to just sit passively and think that things are going to happen out of thin air. That's not what faith is. Faith does not mean absolve yourself of any responsibility in your life. And what your responsibility is when it comes to that goal, that dream, that vision that you have, that purpose. That's all.